I'm Gbrennan. I'm a program coordinator here at Virginia Clean Cities. And I put this together because I thought it'd be a great way to start the year off to give an update for some of our programs that we currently have running this year in 2024 and how you can get involved. So today we're going to have multiple presenters talk about multiple programs that Virginia Clean Cities is a part of, kind of give an update as to their successes, where their intentions are for 2024 and how you can get involved. So I'm trying to skip to the next slide here. So like I said, we're going to highlight a few programs and what they've accomplished in the years past. Some of them have been going on for a few years now. Some of them are just getting started. What we're expecting and striving for in 2024. And how you can get involved, specifically you guys. That's why I wanted to talk to everybody. We have a bunch of different diverse group of stakeholders, from municipalities to power companies to car companies. And so just wanted to give a little bit of update. So first off, we have the Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership, and I'll pass the reins over here to Bruce.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, everyone. It's great to see this great collection of stakeholders and attendees today. All this work couldn't be possible without your partnership, so we appreciate you being here. So I'm Bruce Vilk, EV Program Manager and Communications Director here at Clean Cities. And the first project we're going to talk about today is the Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership. It's been an ongoing project. We're approaching our third year. And what's unique about this one, if you could advance the slide, Greg, it's not just for Virginia, it's four territories, 3 states and the District of Columbia. It was a great project masterminded by our executive director, Alan Harned, and it's one of 3 in the country right now. To give you an overview of what the project is, a big portion of it is EV infrastructure at a variety of community place settings that are available to the public. There's a big component of mapping analysis by one of the national labs, and they're a valuable partner in this project. And you'll hear in a few minutes about our outreach and education component of this project from our great partners, EV Noir. Photos you can see here, those are actual project photos. That's a bank of charging stations in West Virginia. I believe it was 26 charging stations, so that's a much needed resource in that state. And then the photo on the bottom right is an event at Norfolk State University, one of Virginia's HBCUs, and a very successful event. Next slide. So here's kind of an overview of who's involved. There's nearly 25 partners. We have utilities, we have charging companies, we have municipalities, we have nonprofits, we have other clean cities such as Greater Washington, Maryland, and West Virginia clean cities in this project. And it's been really amazing to see over the past 3 years the collaborations, new partnerships that have sprouted from this project, partners and organizations that wouldn't have talked to each other ordinarily. But we've seen events take place in different locations with 2 or 3 or more partners. It's been really enjoyable to see that. When Alan put this together, he imagined an ecosystem, and we're really seeing that during the project. So it's a great group of partners. We have monthly meetings and share updates and share ideas. There's been a lot of collaboration and goodwill among the partners, so that's been very satisfying. Next slide. Why is this project important? As I mentioned earlier, it's one of 3 national pilots. This project started a few years ago, before the IRA funding, before all the big EV infrastructure push. So it's been really setting the standard here in the Mid-Atlantic region. As you see here, it's a very high profile region. We're hitting DC, Maryland, Virginia, a lot of EV ownership in this region, and it's very high profile. The national mapping component that Argonne National Lab developed, it's out of this project, and now it's a national resource that's being used by the public. It has layers for EJ communities, layers for gaps in EV charging infrastructure, so it's a very useful resource. And lastly, this project is so tangible. It's putting EV charging stations in the ground today as we speak, and they're open and available for the public, travelers, local residents. you name it. It's so tangible and so fulfilling to be working on a project like this. Next slide. So accomplishments, we're, like I said, beginning our third and final year. One of our utility partners, BG&E in Baltimore, they reached 1 million emission-free miles with their EV rideshare program just last year, and they haven't even put all their 100 vehicles on the road yet. So that was a huge milestone. We've heard feedback that the riders love them. They love using the EVs. They're quiet and they save them gas costs and everything. There's been a large number of electric school buses deployed in Maryland and Virginia, and we hear feedback about that as well. Kids love it, drivers love it. The number of charging stations out there, good media coverage. The White House put out kind of a summary fact sheet last year detailing all the EV projects going on, and this particular project was mentioned in some of its accomplishments, which was great. High profile events. This is a recent event just last year in the winter in Baltimore, BG&E charging stations, and you have some Department of Energy officials in here as well as local representatives. So very successful events. Like I mentioned before, a lot of new partnerships. Next slide. So how to get involved. You can reach out to us, reach out to me about becoming a host site for EV charging stations. I want to reiterate, these charging stations are covered by federal funds. That includes the equipment and the installation. It is a process. Don't want to get your expectations too high. It takes at least 6 months from the first intake process until energized in the ground, ready to use. So it is a slower process than you might expect. Attend an outreach event that's held at a HBCU or in a city near you. Contribute to the EV analysis project that Argonne National Labs is conducting. So there's a lot of ways to be involved. We're trying to finish strong in this final year, so feel free to reach out to us if you have ideas. We'd love to hear them. So there's a two-part discussion on this project. I want to introduce my esteemed colleague from EV Noir. Danielle Cherry Hoover is a senior project manager with EV Noir, and she's going to talk about all the outreach they've been doing during the project. And take it away, Danielle.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I appreciate the background and about the overview of the project. So I'm just going to go into our component, our meaning EV Noir's component, in regards to the Mid-Atlantic Electrification project or partnership. So just quickly, EV Noir serves as an education and outreach technical lead for this project. Obviously, Bruce just mentioned another Department of Energy, and the purpose for this project is to support all the things that Bruce just mentioned and foster a regional EV ecosystem in the areas of Virginia, DC, Maryland, and West Virginia. And we work towards this effort by engaging diverse community of stakeholders. And basically, we want to address and identify the gaps in transportation and mobility, all levels of mobility, while exploring like economic and workforce development opportunities. So as Bruce mentioned, we have developed some great partnerships out of this. Next slide, please. Bruce gave a great overview of the project, so we can go ahead and cut to the next slide. So EV Noir, our methodology basically bases on what you see here: research, data analysis, implementation, monitoring, and reporting. And that's very cyclical. And we work with a lot of our partners inside and outside of the project. So outside, you see the partners on the right-hand side of some of the partners we've worked with, in addition to the wonderful project partners such as the Greater Washington Clean Cities Coalition, West Virginia, and of course the wonderful folks at Virginia Clean Cities, and then utility companies such as BGE, Pepco, Dominion Energy. And the beauty of this methodology is because, again, it's cyclical. At the very beginning, we do research in what we call landscape analysis. So we need to know, who do we talk to? Where are they located, and why do we need to talk to them? And then develop a toolkit to be effective. Even though we are the subject matter experts, we still need to rely on communities, community-based organizations, advocates, EV enthusiasts, and EV novice, and especially those who have no clue what electrification is or may have never seen an EV before. Next slide, please. So briefly, we also lean on our 501c3, our nonprofit branch, which is EV Hybrid Noir. This is the nation's largest diverse network of EV enthusiasts and drivers across the country, and even some folks globally. So currently, there's 17 different chapters across the country, and we get information and utilize our group as a resource, not only on Facebook, Instagram, but we do fun activities as well. And the fact they're across the country is a benefit when we do projects such as this. Next slide, please. And not only within this project, but the why within EV Noir is that EV Noir envisions a world where basically mobility or transportation is easily accessible, especially electric vehicles. They empower communities of color, rural communities, low-income communities. All of those you may have heard under the term BIPOC or marginalized communities. And diversity within communities is across the board. It's not just race, class, sex. It's rural versus urban. And we have helped to address the climate change and implement. So not only on the education and outreach side, but also on the policy side. And I'm very proud to be working with Virginia Clean Cities in particular, because this project is about implementation. So those are some of the headlines that you see, and is part of the why. So next slide, please. Other headlines on the bottom left, you see our wonderful and esteemed leader, one of our co-founders, Dr. Shelley Francis. Within this project, we have the opportunity to support our project partners, whether that's policy and advocacy. Dr. Francis serves on many advisory committees at the White House and at various capitals within this project area and across the country, about implementation and about equity across the board within various demographic groups. And that's where I was telling you about the BIPOC within EV space. Next slide, please. So not only are our focus areas in general with EV Noir, climate justice policy, EV adoption, workforce economic development, but there's also public health, in addition to that education and engagement component. So with Dr. Francis, that's her backbone. The co-founders of EV Noir, Dr. Shelley Francis and Terry Travis. So Dr. Francis's backbone is public health, and the impacts can be at times catastrophic to those BIPOC communities. And those are some of the headlines that you see there. Nationwide, low and at now this point, moderate income communities of color are 3 times more likely to breathe dirty air than those of their counterparts. And that's something as simple as asthma to chronic bronchial issues. So that's another area of why we're implementing advocacy, because the EV life not only saves financially, but it also saves within your health. There are health implications to the current climate of basically mobility. Next slide, please. So within this project and other projects, we believe within EV Noir that engaging diverse communities is a win-win situation. We talk with project partners, with the community, not at them. No one wants to be preached to, especially with an issue they are already living with. So for example, if a BIPOC community is on a transportation corridor with trucks passing by all the time, we're not going to talk about things they already know. We want to hear from them what the issue is. And many times those who are closest to the issue are also closest to the solution. So we definitely engage diverse communities. And again, that could be rural, urban, the elderly to the youth. We want to hear from all people. And we do that on the, as we mentioned within the methodology, on the front end and continuous through each project. Next slide, please. So 30,000 foot view, again, about the project. We were tasked at EV Noir being the educational outreach lead to have 25 initiatives or educational events within the project. Right now, we're pushing towards 30, and we want to be even more intentional within this the last year of this project, because the opportunity still exists to educate as many people as we can within the project, to gain relationships, to push policy and advocacy, and to gain information and fact finding. So what you see on the screen are some of the things that we do within our program and our projects. We do ride and drives. So what you see on the top left, that was with an HBCU, or historically Black college and university, such as Bruce mentioned. Norfolk State, we did an event with them and their sustainability department just this past November. And with students, it's not a ride and drive with students, it's more of a ride along. So you see some of the students there, they can still touch, feel, ask questions. We bring some of our EV hybrid Noir EV owners to these events. So we found someone within our EV hybrid Noir family, actually is a Norfolk State University alum. He came and brought his vehicle. So there's a relatability factor. So we try to do that as much as possible. And again, lean towards those who are in the areas in which we are serving within the project. So that was Norfolk State. And the bottom left, we love working with our project partners. So just to be as simplistic as possible. We love the show and tell aspect, so people can touch, feel, ask questions. That's Andrew from Blank on the bottom left. He was gracious enough to assist within that a couple of our education outreach events, so people can see that owning an electric vehicle is not as hard as people think. If you know how to pump gas, you can also save even more money and extend the life of a vehicle with an EV. And Andrew can show just how it is. You can plug it. If you can plug in your phone, you're good to go. You know how to plug in an electric vehicle to charge. And on the top right, you'll see policy. In the bottom right, you'll see policy and advocacy opportunities, and those are some nationwide events. So one of the co-founders is with Senator Buttigieg at the ALC. This was just a couple weeks ago. And on the bottom right, EV Noir leads e-mobility, diversity and equity and inclusion conference each year. So that's the annual conference. As I mentioned before, we like to hear and from all voices. So that's our young leaders panel, and that was virtual and in person in Washington DC this year. So next slide. So I'm going to briefly talk about some of our research areas. We're very proud of the research that we've done thus far in this project. We gain a lot of information, and we'll still continue to do so prior to our reporting towards the end of this project year. So you see the project areas. I mentioned the demographics, current transportation landscape, or what we call landscape analysis. And that's the section where we talk about the impacts within each location. And then people's knowledge or lack of knowledge, their attitudes and beliefs about electric vehicles. We want to know the purest, most top of mind knowledge base. And if there's zero, that's fine too. We would like to know that. And then another area is information sources. Where do people get their information? Is it a state fair in West Virginia? Or is it a billboard? Or is it social media? We like to know so we can best communicate within this project and for future references and resources. Next slide. So quickly, we're going to highlight, of course, the wonderful state of Virginia, since a lot of you who are listening are from the area. So as we mentioned before, the project areas Maryland, DC, Washington, DC, Virginia, and West Virginia. So within the landscape analysis, we have multiple pillars of fact-finding and gaining information on the top of the project, and then, as I mentioned before, through the duration. So we've done surveys over nearly 900, 900 surveys within the project area. We've done key informant interviews. So advocates, stakeholders, community-based organization leaders, those who are within utility companies, et cetera, within the project areas to get their attitudes and information and what they do within their own project areas. And then also focus groups. So this is the information that we compiled most recently. And so Virginia, if you can see, we have those pillars of race, or demographics. And then the bottom, we also wanted to add the transportation landscape, or what mass transit availability looks like. And we did this for each of the project areas. So it's similar for the other project areas, project location areas, excuse me. For example, 4 out of 10 who completed the survey had incomes in the low to moderate range. So out of the project, Virginia had the second highest share of low income participants, with West Virginia being right below that. Mass transit availability, and this is the access to mass transit. It was conflicting in Virginia, and that was indicated in the transportation landscape could be more fragmented. And a lot of that has to just do with geography. You know, the geography of Virginia looks different than the geography of West Virginia. And of course, looks very much different than downtown urban DC or Johnston Square in Baltimore or Maryland areas. Rural urban divide, for example, 37% lived in rural areas, which Virginia and Maryland were both kind of a hybrid, which you can imagine, of both urban and suburban areas. And then race. Asian participants were most likely to come from Virginia and one of 2 other racial groups. So we basically break things down as granular as we possible and see where any trends may lie. Next slide. And this is just the overall key fact finding, some of the key findings that we pulled out by state. So for example, key variable charging or access to charging. This was reported in all states. Basically, the participants shared that there was no charging access within their areas or near them. So as you can imagine, again, Virginia and DC are very similar. West Virginia being the highest access or lacking access to charging at 72%, and Maryland at 36%. So there's some outliers, with West Virginia being one of them. And then the other key fact finding we wanted to quickly share was proximity to EV drivers. Basically, we asked the question to share, asked the participants to share if they knew an EV driver, or if they saw an electric vehicle in their area. And other questions, that was one of the key questions, but other questions, it's just e-mobility in general. I know some of you may have never seen an e-scooter before, but if you're in downtown DC or where I live, you'll see e-scooters just in and around because it's an urban area. So 26% in Virginia stated they knew an EV driver, or at least had an association or seen an EV. Whereas DC, that is a little more. And as you can see in West Virginia, it's a little less. Next slide. So with that, I wanted to breeze through at least our methodology, where we are currently in our fact finding. And here's some contact details. We are currently opening up our focus groups for each state, or excuse me, each project area again. There is an honorarium for participation. I will drop that in the chat shortly. This is the information of the project team under the leadership of this project, under the internal leadership of Dr. Shelley Francis and my colleague Alex. There are all of our information. If you have any questions, please feel free, and the information is on the screen.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate it. Lots of really in-depth and awesome information there. Up next, we're going to have Lily from the Empower team. Are you ready, Lily?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking to so many people on this call. It's not surprising given Virginia's reputation and all the amazing projects that y'all are working on to see this many people turn out. But regardless, I'm really excited to talk with you about the Empower project. There's a lot of acronyms on these slides, and so I will try my best to break that down for you all. But Empower stands for the Equitable Mobility Powering Opportunities for Workplace Electrification Readiness. I am not a part of Virginia Clean Cities, but I was so graciously invited to speak about Empower because we are working on the same project. I'm at East Tennessee Clean Fuels, and I'm a project manager here. And so much of my time is spent uh, talking about Empower. And so I figured it was going to be a really great time to really bring that to everyone's attention on this presentation. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Next slide. Yeah, so the Empower project is one of 3 of the national workplace charging projects funded by the US Department of Energy. It's really focusing on getting workplace charging adoption throughout the United States through outreach and workplace charger install pledges and actual installations. And the way that kind of looks is there are, I believe there's 30 total Clean Cities coalitions that are participating in the Empower project, both funded and unfunded. And Virginia Clean Cities is one of them. East Tennessee Clean Fuels, the Clean Cities coalition that I'm located at, is one of them, among many others. So it's what we're doing is we each have a required number of pledges that we are trying to get workplaces to sign that say, yes, I'm interested in having workplace charging at my place of work. And I plan to make that happen within the time of the project period. And then we hope that we can kind of equip them with enough assistance to be able to lead to an installation. It's a very unique project. I know there are 3 that are doing really similar work right now that are being funded by the US Department of Energy, but Empower is different because it's the first and only equity-focused nationwide workplace charging program in the United States. And we're really following Justice 40 tenets, the Justice 40 initiative. And I'll get into that maybe a little bit later, but basically 40% of each coalition's pledges and installations need to be in what we're calling like EEJ communities, EEJ standing for energy and environmental justice. And so we determine those by running a lot of different metrics, some that are made available through the Argonne National Lab and the EPA's EJ screen. And we also look at formally redlined communities. And we also look at a lot of metrics revolving around like opportunities to different work and seeing how much like the median household income is for people to sort of determine whether or not it is a EEJ community. Yeah, also, okay, never mind. Next slide. Sorry. So Empower it's really important work. Every Clean Cities coalition that's participating in the project and that gets a workplace to sign a pledge, signing that pledge kind of opens up $2,000 worth of direct technical assistance and guidance to facilitate that charging. That can look like a lot of different things. We have really learned that as we've been going through this process, it's going to be something different for every state, every coalition, and every workplace too. So for some people, like they may have already kind of done the legwork on an install, so they're not really interested in like the technical assistance side of like, well, we can offer you a rundown of like the price, or we can get you in touch with the people that can actually do the installation for you because we have those connections through our coalition. It could look a little bit different. Like we want the coalition that is asking us to sign this to do a little bit of work kind of promoting us and saying like this workplace is an EV friendly workplace, and that's absolutely something that we can use as a part of the technical assistance that all the Clean Cities coalitions provide. It's also really important because the minority and low income communities, and I'm gonna just say like disinvested communities because I think that kind of like accurately refers to what I'm talking about referring to this project. People in these like disinvested communities have kind of traditionally been underserved by a lot of like federal funding. And so we're hoping that the Empower project is a way to be able to bring workplace charging and electric vehicles to these different communities, a lot of which was addressed by Danielle in the previous presentation. But also it's important to have these stations because people are more likely to be living in like multi-unit dwellings for rent, and they may otherwise lack the access to an at-home charger. So it's important to be able to have it at their place of work. And employees also have the most benefit economically from owning and operating an EV. And it's also just kind of an added benefit for a workplace to offer to their employees. And so those are just, in my opinion, like some of the key components of Empower that make it really important work. Next slide. So these are just some of the project goals for Empower. We really want to have an emphasis on increasing employer commitments for workplace charging programs and installations. Even if someone signs a pledge that doesn't result in an installation within the project timeline, it's still just an indication that they are interested and they want to be they want to move in that direction in the future, even if it does not happen like within the time frame of Empower. We also believe that one of the goals with the project is that we really want to increase career pathways in the EV charging industry for underrepresented communities. And also just kind of having it be a one-stop shop for web resources and tools related to workplace charging, consistent messaging and tactics and coordination with national data and utility partners. For anybody on this call, Virginia Clean Cities, full transparency, since my coalition is working on this project and I am working with all the coalitions throughout the United States, Virginia Clean Cities is absolutely killing it. They've already gotten over half of the number of pledges that they are required to get by being on the project. And it's all just like it's through very meaningful outreach. And so I definitely think that y'all have so many people working for your coalition, and clearly a lot of people are showing up right now that kind of speak to what I'm saying. But
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, all the coalitions are connected because we're all Clean Cities coalitions across the United States. But depending on how many people there are at the coalition, how long they've been around, who's on their board, etc., like there are coalitions that just have a lot more connections that can really bring the maximum benefit to the workplace in mind that's thinking about signing the pledge and also having the installation. So Virginia's Clean Cities is definitely in a great position to kind of push the project. Also, there's a public recognition program that's underway. Our project prime is Columbia Willamette Clean Cities, and they are working on having a like pretty beefy public recognition program where any workplace that signs the pledge is going to be a part of a pretty big like social media push. There also might be a press release from the White House that's just kind of been like the whispering, I don't know the phrase, but that's just kind of been like the underlying message that we've gotten, is that this will eventually result in a like larger press release from like the White House with people that have signed on for the project. So those are just some of the many benefits that signing a pledge can offer. Next slide. So these are just some of our key performance indicators. So of the 30 coalitions that are participating in Empower, and again, that is nationwide, east to west coast, we intend to eventually have 2,000 workplaces contacted through the outreach efforts of all the clean cities participating in the project. As I mentioned, there's the Justice 40 component. So we hope that 40% of the employer commitments will come from employers of diverse backgrounds, in rural areas, people of color, people that are just disinvested. And that within that, we also have another component where if it's like a woman-owned business too, like that could count as being like a part of the Justice 40 component. And then we hope to have 3,500 EVSE ports installed by the end of the project too. So big things down the line for Empower, super exciting. Next slide. This is a map to kind of break down all the 30 coalitions that are participating in the project. The states that are highlighted in blue are the regional captains. And you'll see Virginia Clean Cities is the regional captain for Empower. No surprise there. And yeah, there are some coalitions that are like several that are in one state. And so that's been really interesting to see like how everybody is taking kind of like a different approach to the project with their outreach and sort of leveraging different connections that they have. I think I mentioned Columbia Willamette Clean Cities, short is CWCC. They are the project prime for Empower. And they are really like, they do most of the planning for the project. And then the coalition that I'm at is East Tennessee Clean Fuels. We are in Knoxville, Tennessee. So just like very far east and sort of in the middle. Yeah, a little over. Other way. It's okay. It's okay. So ETCF, that's the acronym for our coalition. We are the implementation team. And so we do a lot of the administrative work, a lot of the technical assistance. In my position, I've been doing a lot of the outreach to a lot of the coalitions participating in Empower to kind of make sure people are on track and be able to answer any questions that people are having. And it's also just really cool to hear about all the creative ways that people are working with their communities and seeing like what people actually need and how they can get that and how we can best equip them in that process to be able to get the pledges signed and result in installations down the line. And I should also mention that Empower it's the largest project, or it is the largest project in US DOE Vehicle Technology Office history. And so there's a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of coalitions involved, and we hope that that's going to result in a lot of really amazing KPIs down the line, as well as some noticeable change in the way that we kind of visualize and enact change for transportation in the future for everybody in the United States. And so it's been a really fun project to work on. Next slide. Yeah, so some next steps. If you are interested in Empower, what you can do is you can sign the pledge by actually just going to workplacecharging.com. You just go to the website and scroll down, and it's a couple of fields that you fill out. You'll have a drop-down area where if you are in Virginia, it'll say, I'm interested in signing my workplace up for this by signing this pledge, and I'm going to click on Virginia Clean Cities as the coalition in my area. If you don't want to put it, that's fine. Just putting your zip code will be able to route it to the people at VCC. And then after we receive your information, someone from VCC or whichever state you're in, I'm assuming most of you are in Virginia, you'll get a call or an email from someone from your respective state or coalition that's closest by, and they will kind of coach you through the process of like the best way to get an installation at your workplace. And you can kind of co-create a plan of action. These are just different ways that that technical assistance can be provided to you. And this is not an all-inclusive, or this is not as extensive of a list as it could be. There are a lot of other ways. It's just, again, it is a co-created thing. So yeah, just find the pledge. You're fine on that website, and someone from BCC will contact you, and you can go to the last slide.
Sorry, Lily.
No, you're fine. Again, my name's Lily. I'm a project manager at East Tennessee Clean Fuels. I've been working a lot on Empower lately. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. And yeah, thank you so much, Virginia Clean Cities, for having me. I love working with y'all.
Of course. Thanks so much, Lily. I appreciate it. And like Lily was saying, if you follow that link that I posted in the chat there, you can scroll about 3/4 of the way down and fill out the workplace charging, and it'll get sent an email directly to someone from the Empower team, and we'll be in contact with you shortly. Up next, we have Sarah Stallcup-Jones. She is going to give a presentation on Rural Reimagined, which is hard enough to say as it is, but I love the program. So Sarah, I'll pass it over to you if you're ready.
Yep, I am ready. Thanks, Greg. Yep, alliteration here. So as Greg mentioned, I'm Sarah Stallcup-Jones. I am the Research and Heavy Duty Vehicle Program Manager and our Chief Equity Officer here on the Virginia Clean Cities team. And I'm going to run you through the Rural Reimagined project. Next slide. So I wanted to start off with a little bit of project background. So back when we were still planning for this project, that was back in 2021, it was identified that more than 182 counties in Appalachia were designated as either economically distressed or at risk. So that included counties in Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, Tennessee, and Virginia. And then looking at those counties, we found that the rural and low income communities within Central Appalachia were those that were struggling the most in the EV transition due to lack of electric vehicle infrastructure, low awareness of the technology, and limited to no access to EVs and clean energy jobs. Next slide. So the Rural Reimagined project was designed to address those needs. It really has two central pillars to the project. The first is providing free 2 to 6 week EV test drives to local governments across the region. We have on our Virginia Clean Cities demo list all American EVs on loan. And then the second part was developing a broad EV charging station network in Central Appalachia, seeking to install around 200 new stations, with about 25 of those stations being placed in Virginia. Next slide. So this is another one of those Virginia Clean Cities programs where we have a lot of project partners. The prime on this project is Dr. Penjin Chen out of East Tennessee Tech. But as you can see, we have a number of Clean Cities partners, a number of utility partners, other nonprofits, and great groups on the team. And Virginia Clean Cities is the lead of the Virginia side of the efforts. Next slide. So this is a map of the initial counties that were outlined to participate in the project for the factors that I identified earlier, their existence in the Appalachian region, and then also looking at some of those Justice 40 metrics that some of the other amazing speakers we've had today have addressed, looking at income, access to technology, and many other things like population size. Next slide. And so I want to give you guys a brief overview of the two vehicles that we have available for demo through this project. The first that I want to highlight is the Chevy Volt with a B EUV. We have some examples here where it has been used by some rural localities. It has an estimated range of 247 miles. I drove it round trip today 70 miles, and it worked great to go out to rural Page County out here. One of the great things about the Bolt EUV is that it has really good cargo space. You can see that it has been utilized to carry meeting materials, but the trunk space in there is a really great addition to this vehicle. Next slide. And then I also want to highlight our probably most on-demand vehicle, which is the Ford F-150 Lightning. We have the standard version of this vehicle, which means that its estimated range is about 240 miles maximum. However, fleets can get extended battery packs that can go up to 320 miles. This vehicle also has great storage with the front trunk, or the frunk as people call it. Since there's no engine, you have additional cargo space in the front. And one of the really cool features about this truck is that it also has a lot of power outlets throughout that you can plug in your standard 110 outlet into. And we've heard from fleets in the area that they're actually utilizing those those power outlets to charge things like their electric lawn equipment in the field rather than having to go back to the depot and swap out batteries. Next slide. So it is really easy to sign up for a demo. I'm going to put this link in the chat as well so you guys can click it and access it. But if you are affiliated with a government entity in Virginia and you are interested, please click this link, fill out your information, and then someone on our team will be in contact with you. We are currently requesting participants be affiliated with a government entity. That's mainly has to do with putting the vehicle on your insurance for the duration of the vehicle, but you can still reach out to us to learn more. There is a bit of a wait list on some of these vehicles, but it's a great opportunity and we'd love to get you on the list. Next slide. And then this is a highlight of the demos that we've done thus far as of this month. You can see the green localities here are the ones that have tried out the Bolt EUV, and then the localities highlighted in blue have tried out the F-150 Lightning. We have expanded the project to include communities outside of that initial Appalachian region that we highlighted because we saw that there was really great demand. So if you are a rural community that is interested in demoing it, but you don't fit in that specific Appalachian region, still reach out to us and we'll see if we can make it work. Next slide. And then to talk about the charging stations, as I mentioned, we're installing approximately 25 charging stations across Virginia through this project. That includes public and residential chargers. And so we're currently in search of site hosts who are interested in either hosting a public charger, and then also multi-unit dwelling site hosts are also a big need for this project. So if you work in townhome communities, no townhome communities, apartment communities, condo areas, things like that, who would be interested in having an EV charger, please reach out to us. And I'll have you go to the next slide, which I believe is my last. So yeah, this is my last slide. Again, there's the link to sign up for a vehicle demo. And if you're interested in hosting an EV charging station, reach out to either myself or Matt Wade on our team, and we will see what we can do. And that
Perfect.
is my very quick overview.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, that's I love working with Rural Reimagined. It's a great program. I am gonna do EVCAP, one of our newest programs here at Virginia Clean Cities. So EVCAP stands for EV Charging Assistance Program. For those of you that don't know, EV is electric vehicle. Apparently that's need to be distinguished for some communities. So just a brief overview. So this is administered by the Virginia Department of Energy with technical support from us here at Virginia Clean Cities. It's a budget of 1.1 million or so, and it's been meant actually not or so. It's 1.1 million over the next 4 years. The maximum award we're allowed to give out is for $400,000, and the proposals, if you're interested in putting one in for your area, municipality, government service, they are due by February 16th. We recently did a webinar going through the whole proposal process, applications, which I have a QR link to and a link to that you'll see later. Eligible applicants include private businesses and government and industry partners. The activities we're trying to get into and use this money for is the purchase and installation of EV chargers, and with a focus, as we've seen most of these programs are, at disadvantaged and rural communities in Virginia. So the communities, specifically like the project scope and general goals, are to work at community level to understand and address issues related to EV charging stations in underserved areas. The installation and the evaluation, implement projects involving the installation of EV chargers to assess the benefits for underserved communities and to maximize impact by aligning with other funding programs. So just like Danielle said earlier, we want to speak with communities and implement these projects with them, not for them, not to them, but with them. And then site selection and focus is, like we said, is preferred brownfield sites, including previously mined lands for infrastructure deployment, and a focus on all areas within Virginia, particularly, like we said, disadvantaged rural communities throughout Virginia. So the economic benefits of this program and the leverage funding that are needed to make this happen. So EVCAPs, obviously, we're meant to have a positive impact on the local economies. Like I said, we want to work with these communities, with these places. Like some of these places, are just getting broadband internet, so maybe an EV charger isn't what they need, and we can direct them in another area and areas that they need. So engaging with the community throughout this process, again, making sure we are meeting their needs on a community-based organizations, whether it be like MOPS or these other community organizations in the area. And then another thing here we're able to do with EVCAP is find funding or utilize leverage funding. So like maybe we could pair some of the other programs that we've had or other tax incentives available in order to leverage these fundings available to make it go as far as we possibly can. So, and lastly, but not definitely not least, this project is meant to hire local workers and ensure that prevailing wages in Virginia are paid. The benefits extend to various communities, including women, people of color, veterans, formerly incarcerated individuals, dislocated workers, indigenous people, low wealth. Again, all the people from all the communities and people from the EJ40. Now, there's a few reporting things that we'll need to have from you on this program, just as a little precursor to what it means to have a proposal and be a part of this program. You'll need to report a quarterly report to Virginia Department of Energy. You'll need to put all the details and photos of the chargers once they're installed up on PlugShare. And PlugShare is an app that a lot of us use here at VCC to update chargers and locate chargers for ourselves and for our partners. Reporting will utilize census poverty data, the EV Charging Justice 40 map, EPA EJ40 screening tool, and prioritize EVSC siting in high poverty or EJ40 communities. Installation reports shall include cost share details. So like I said, leverage funding. We want to see all of the inventive and creative ways you're using this funding and are using other leverage funds from other grants or from other localities or nonprofits. Details on long-term maintenance. We're going to need, like I said, a detailed long-term maintenance and operation plan for each of these chargers. And lastly, awardees will be required to meet all terms and conditions of funding, as well as provide documentation of compliance with the Build America, Buy America Act and Davis-Bacon prevailing wage requirements when requested. So I know we talked a lot about in this entire webinar for all of those EPA screening tools, and here they are. The Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, which is on your top right there. And you can also see the URL. An Energy Justice Dashboard, which is on the bottom right. And then in Virginia, EJ Screen, Environmental Justice Screen on the bottom in purple. All these links can be found on our webpage if you want to know more. And then for assistance and questions with EVCAP, you can get a hold of me or rpresnell. We are doing the technical assistance for EVCAP. And if you want to know about submitting a proposal and what that might mean, please check out the QR code on the right and the YouTube video that goes through the entire thing. But like I said, if you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. I made a phone call today to talk to someone about a proposal that they're thinking of. So with that, we're running a little bit behind here. So I'm going to pass it real quick to Matt Way to go over LODESTAR.
Oh, thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak to you about one of our newest projects. Started in October 2023 on the logistics decarbonization in strategic environmental justice areas. This is one of my most creative acronyms that I've been able to come up with. So yeah, next slide, Greg. And so the project team, this is a Department of Energy funded project. So Nicole Kirby is our project manager at Department of Energy. As you can see, the project team is myself, Alan Harned, Sarah Stalkup-Jones, Bruce Velk, and Russell Presnell. And then on our partner side is Matthew Fuhr with Advanced Logistics Systems. He is a FedEx contractor based out of North Carolina, but is operating in Virginia. We have Julie Manzari and Christopher Russell with Dominion Energy handling the electric vehicle charging and make-ready component, and Shakaya Cooper and of Generation 180 and Daniel Cherry Hoover now working with us on our last mile leadership program. So next slide, please. So this is a 3-year project. Like I said, it was just getting started. It consists of 2 primary tasks: technology deployment and analysis, and last mile leadership education and outreach. Under the task 1, we want to do a site analysis and building upgrades at a FedEx Logistics Center in Fredericksburg, Virginia, to install 5 EV charging stations to service 5 Class 5 or 6 electric vans, delivery step vans. So these will be replacing existing gasoline-powered delivery step vans that the FedEx contractor is currently utilizing. So we're excited to test these out in the real world and get some data back and do some reporting and build a real world business case scenario for how other independent contractors can adopt electric vehicles in their fleets. And then another exciting component of this project is the last mile leadership education project and our outreach component. So we have some funding for workforce development and education and clean transportation. And we have developed a last mile leadership scholarship program. And this currently is on the street and is being advertised. The deadline for applicants is March 15th. And I will put the link in the chat here to show to the application package and the cover letter. Anyone who is enrolled in a four-year college, a community college, a technical school, a trade school, an apprenticeship program. Essentially, we wanted to make this available to as many people as possible who are seeking to study topics in clean transportation. So this could be someone who's studying their PhD in engineering. It could be someone who is getting or working through an apprenticeship to be an electrician. It could be someone who's working in an automotive technical program at a community college. It could just be someone who is studying electrical engineering in college. Really, we're just trying to get as many applicants to apply for this scholarship. We have about enough funding for about 20 scholarships, and so the ask to you on this call is to spread the word about the scholarship activity and program and opportunity through your networks and to interested students that you may know. These students will work with Virginia Clean Cities. We will meet with them regularly on track their progress through their coursework over 2 years, and we will eventually have them present on their educational activities to the Department of Energy. Next slide, please. This is kind of just going a little further into task 1 and task 2. Don't really necessarily need to talk too much about this, but we're going to be deploying these vehicles. We're going to be doing data collection. We're going to be doing reporting and doing a business case analysis. We're going to be modeling other metro areas to see, what other types of metro areas this type of deployment could work for. And then we'll be presenting all this to logistics companies at major conferences. So next slide, please. And then task 2, I've kind of discussed this. Workshops with VCC, preparing a final presentation, and then having a nationwide distribution of the results. Next slide, please. So right now we're kind of in the EVSE deployment process. We are working with Dominion and with FedEx to negotiate an agreement to install the equipment and make the necessary upgrades. And then once that's done, we will start beginning the vehicle deployment process. Next slide, please. Which is this slide. And so ALS and VCC are currently pricing out and getting the specifications necessary to place an order for the delivery vans, and with the hopes of them being in service by September of 2024. And next slide, please. So currently we're advertising the LML program. We're doing outreach to schools, including HBCUs and trade schools. And we are doing monthly meetings with our project partners. And then with ALS and Dominion Energy, we are working with a property manager, working on the electrical upgrades that are needed, and vetting any kind of contractual relationships we need to have with third-party vendors who may be providing the EV charging equipment. So next slide, please. And that is all on the LODESTAR project. So the ask really is to spread the word about the Last Mile Leadership Scholarship Program to any interested students. And we will be happy to talk to them about it and review any applications that come in. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. I appreciate everyone that stuck around for the call. We went a little bit longer today. If you have any questions, please feel free to stick them in the chat. Or unmute yourself if you can. I'm not sure that you can on this webinar. But like I said, I appreciate you guys coming and listening in. This will be posted as well. All of these links will be available on our website. So yeah, please get involved. We have grants, and this grant money is available and can be implemented for a lot of places in Virginia. Whether it be the Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership, Rural Reimagined, or if you're interested in chargers for your workplace. Thank you guys so much. Hey, thanks, John. Thanks for coming and hanging out. You guys want to sign in power or what? Sorry, I'm calling out some of our partners here directly. But yeah, if no one's got questions, I will let you go. It is the end of the day. Thank you so much for coming in this happy hour. Thank you to Bruce and Danielle for presenting, Lily, Sarah, and Matt for coming in.